Hello, hello, hello. Mhm.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Here on a rainy, wet nest day.
Can you believe all this rain?
I know it's crazy. It feels more like April with this cooler weather and rain. How
It's
much we've been
crazy.
having lately, but you know, what can we do? So,
Hi, Frank and Dana.
Everybody,
hey. Hey, Jimmy.
catch up on his TV, so if you see us looking up, that's why.
Okay. Well, I always wanted to make it big on the big screen. No, I'm kidding.
You're on TV, Halton.
I was in a production of Tom Sawyer when I was in high school, and ever since then, all I've ever dreamed of was being an actor on TV. Except
Well,
I'm not really acting right now, but this will have to do, I guess. Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
good. How's everybody?
I'm doing good.
Doing good.
Mm-hmm. We'll give it another minute or so here.
Alton, do you have YouTube up?
I do. It's live. There's 6 people in here.
Okay.
Justin, can you say hi over here?
Okay.
Maybe
Reconnect.
reload. Yeah. Hopefully the 6 of you it shows are showing in here can hear me and say everything. Mm. I'll give it a
I'll
minute.
tell you what, it's good to be back with y'all.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Frank. Been a while, but it's good to see you. Hope you're feeling good.
Feeling a lot better.
That's awesome. Awesome. Good. Alright. Shows we have 9 over here. Okay. Joyce, is it working for you?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Good, good, good. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we will get started and have some fun in the book of Revelation. We may have some changes coming soon, TM. I don't know when exactly, till Wednesday night. But for now, we're going to just keep trucking ahead with what we're doing, and we'll deal with those as we come and as I get some more information too. So, we're in Revelation. We've spent some time there already. Going a little slow, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I like really digging in and finding out what the word has to say. So we spent some time last week talking about John and this vision he has, as well as a little more about the greeting to the 7 churches and kind of the significance that has. So far, there hasn't been anything really kind of too odd, I would say, in the book of Revelation yet. So far, most of the stuff is not what you'd usually find in uh, some of the letters from earlier in the New Testament, but it's nothing that far fetched yet, nothing kind of really crazy or out of the ordinary. But that'll change. That'll change. It gets weird. Uh, Not a bad way, but it gets weird at some point. Um, I talked a lot about the significance of that and kind of what the churches were dealing with and some of the problems they were facing. But before we can really kind of dive into the discussion of the churches, John has a vision. Uh, so John is kind of on the island of Patmos. He's there alone, exiled for some reason. Everybody just kind of assumes persecution. That's probably what happens. Um, but he's on the island of Patmos, exiled, and he hears this voice like a trumpet say some words behind him. And he says, write what you see in a book and send it to the seven churches, to Ephesus and to Smyrna, and to Pergamum and to Thyatira, and to Sardis and to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea. So he hears something. And then he's going to say in verse 12, then I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me. And on turning, and then he's going to go into the vision here. Now, the reason I kind of stop right here is because I think there's really something important I want to emphasize here that is going to be really important later on in Revelation. And if you can kind of get in your mind now, it'll really help later on. So, John has this practice in the book of Revelation where he hears something. He hears words or he hears about something. And then he turns and he looks with his eyes and he sees something completely different than what he just heard about. I don't really want to kind of go into any examples of that yet because they'll be very evident, and I'll make sure to really point them out when we get there. But this scene right here kind of sets up the expectation throughout the book of Revelation that what you hear doesn't always mesh with what you see. And throughout the book of Revelation, John is going to kind of prove over and over again that what you hear is not the most important thing. It's what he sees in the vision that is important and that holds weight, that holds significance. So in the case of Revelation, in the case of this book, seeing is way more important than hearing. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't really have a lot to do with what happens here, but you're going to kind of see this refrain later on in the book where he hears something and then he sees something. So he turns and he sees 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the lampstands, one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze refined in a furnace. And his voice was like the roar of many waters. In his right hand, he held 7 stars. From his mouth came a sharp 2-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in full strength. So there's some more, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's kind of what John sees, right? He turns around and he So my question is first and foremost is, what does this vision of this individual, what kind of feelings or emotions or does this invoke in you? Or what does this vision kind of call you back to? Is there something else that it reminds you of? Or, what stands out when you read this vision that John has of this man standing behind him?
It was probably Daniel, but there was in the Old Testament where someone, it may have been Daniel, had a vision of God, and it described him in similar ways with bronze and I think lapis and just lots of just stone and metal kind of imagery.
So I think I know what you're talking about. So if this is what you're talking about, let me know. If it's something else, let me know if I got you wrong. But you mentioned Daniel, and this does kind of call back to a vision in Daniel. And in Daniel has a dream, and in the dream, he has a dream of this man that's made out of metal. Give me a second. Sorry. It says the internet connection is unstable. Can you all hear me fine? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can.
Give me a second. Though it's in Zoom right now. I can't really. Okay. Well, hopefully everything's going fine. So in the vision, in Daniel, in the dream, it's made out of different kinds of metal. And I can't remember what all the different metals were. I can go and look real quick. Probably I should do that. But the man is made out of different kinds of metals. Well, I think Nebuchadnezzar actually has a dream. Maybe I should do.
Well, if it's the Nebuchadnezzar one, that's not what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Thinking of the one where it goes on to describe the angels with, I think, wheels at their feet. And
oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Isaiah, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. But as Becky over here on YouTube said, it's very similar to other Old Testament visions, and I can't remember what vision you're exactly describing there. But one thing that is very clear, and I think this vision really does try to invoke, is a callback to those older Old Testament visions of God and of similar things, which would make sense, right? Yeah. What else?
Daniel 7:28. After Daniel had this dream, he said, and that was the end of the dream. And I, Daniel, was very afraid. My face became very white from fear. And I didn't tell other people what I saw and heard. But Daniel was just as scared after his vision as John was here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's interesting that both kind of these similar visions of this one who is like the Son of Man, the the response is fear, right? Daniel turns white of face and he sees this and he's scared and he locks all this away, right? And John sees this there in verse 17. It says, "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead." You know, John basically faints uh, here after seeing this vision. So it's very interesting that their first response upon seeing something like this is fear. But I would argue that that may not be all that unusual. Oftentimes, the human response to things we cannot understand is fear. Um, so apparently, I don't know much about what's going on. Apparently, there's a great deal of talk lately about UFOs in the news and stuff. I don't really watch a lot of news, but I did get an article this morning about how Congress is preparing to release some bill or law or confidential secrets about some unidentified flying objects and everything else. And me, I'm I don't know about all that stuff, right? Of aliens and all that. But one thing that was very interesting to me was reading some of the comments and seeing some of the reactions of people. It's something that is unidentified, unknown, may or may not be true, probably not on kind of the spectrum of truth. And yet, one of the common things that almost everyone they talk to about this and about the UFOs and everything else, one of their first reactions was fear. Oh, like this fear of, well, I hope this isn't real because that'd be scary, or if it is real, I hope they don't hurt us or something like that. So I think it's a very human response that one of our reactions to things that we just can't understand, that we can't comprehend, that we can't know is fear. Yeah, really good point. What else?
I can deal with unidentified flying objects. When identified as an alien, I wouldn't have trouble.
Yeah.
I don't mind unidentified. Identified as alien, that kind of throws me off.
Right.
So far, nobody's credible has identified them as alien. It's just unidentified.
Right. What else about this vision kind of sticks out, or this individual? All right. Well, that's all well and good. So about this vision specifically, some of the things about it that we've got to remember as we go in Revelation is that a lot of Revelation is symbolism. A lot of it is metaphors. So a lot of the things you're going to see, they represent something. And in this vision, a lot of what we see represents something. All of the descriptions of this individual, they mean something. They kind of are supposed to help bring the picture together of what this is, right? And so in this case specifically, the vision is of this one who is like the Son of Man. Now, when you hear that, there should really just be kind of one name that kind of immediately springs to mind when we hear that. And that name is Jesus. And so when we see this vision, have this vision of this, we can know that it's Jesus. But all of this are representative of something. So for an example, the robe and the gold sash that is described here, they have kind of priestly connotations. It's meant to kind of signify that whoever this is a priestly figure, someone who is in a position of power. The white hair, the white hair, even in our time today, white hair represents, or at least it should represent, wisdom. It represents longevity. It represents eternity and divinity. If you look at art of God throughout the ages, the Renaissance and all of these other time periods that I used to know about, but I don't anymore. But if you look at art of God, very often in pictures and paintings of God the Father, you'll see that he's painted with white hair. In movies and representations of God, oftentimes he has white hair. And it's because this symbol has remained, this symbol of eternal divine power, right? The fiery eyes. The people of this time, this Greco-Roman type of era, the eyes were extremely important. The eyes were kind of the windows to the soul. So having fiery eyes in this vision, it really means that whoever has these has a penetrating gaze. They can see, nothing can hide, right? Just like how fire kind of reveals everything, right? If you see a forest, right, and you see before and after pictures and of a wildfire, right? After the fire has come through, there's really nothing that's hidden in the forest anymore, because anything that could potentially hide there, all the hiding spots are gone, right? There's nothing remaining. And more than that, it represents a purifying power. Fire is not just this destructive force, but it's one used to purify. It's one used to refine. And that's something the eyes represent. The bronze feet, they represent stability. They represent this idea of immovability. That whoever this individual is, this is Jesus. Jesus cannot be moved. His presence will always be there, is ever present. The voice, of course, represents kind of this divine authority, and then the stars in his hand and the lampstands, again, are just a representation of his power over everything, over anything that exists. He's not a God that is limited by location or limited by field. So, for example, the Greek gods, right? The Greek gods were highly specific. Zeus was the god of thunder. Poseidon was the god of the sea, right? And for the most part, they didn't mix in each other's realms. And for the most part as well, there was no one that controlled the heavens themselves, right? The stars. Those things were even beyond the gods. But here we have this image of Jesus. Here we have this image of Christ. And in this image, he's saying, there's nothing beyond my control. There's nothing that I can't control. And it's overall, when I read this and knowing these symbols, right? When I read this, I see power, right? I see this unstoppable, immovable source of divine power, right? And to those in the churches that John was writing to, that's something they would have seen. They would have seen this source of power. And in their day and time, where they were struggling, why would that message have been important to them? Why is it important that this vision of Christ conveys power?
To the people of the time, they were suffering persecution. So so Jesus being powerful would definitely be important.
Yeah. I mean, they were suffering persecution, and so Jesus being powerful would be important. Absolutely. I think there's something more though. There's something that'll be really important throughout the book of Revelation that really begins right here. That I want us to kind of think about. Come on, we can really figure it out with some of the context we've talked about. It goes along with what you were saying, Dana, about persecution, but it's a little bit more than that. I'll let you stew and think for, another 30 seconds or so, and then I'll give the answer. But I really want us to think about it, because we all have to try to do things on our own.
Nobody else is going to say anything. I'm not sure what answer you're looking for, but he does give a further answer in the next couple of verses. Fear not, I am the first and the last. When I died, behold, I am alive forevermore. Have the keys of death and Hades. So, as far as taking reassurance from Jesus being powerful, that's something right there that he has conquered death.
Yeah. So, we've talked a little bit about this, and this may be a little bit on my bad here, but the Roman emperors at this time had begun basically a new cult, wherein emperor worship had begun, where the emperors of the Romans designated themselves as gods, and they desired and wished to be worshipped like gods. They wanted to be worshipped like gods, and so they kind of enforced this idea throughout the empire. And so you have this physical present power of the Roman emperor and he was everywhere. Why, right? For these churches, the Roman emperor was everywhere. His soldiers marched through the streets. The walls of the city were manned by his people. You had to speak the language that he wanted you to speak, which was often Greek. You had to adopt Roman laws and Roman customs, right? So you lost the sense of what made you a unique people as you had to become more Roman. The money that you used had the image of the emperor on it, so you could never escape the eye of the emperor because he was always with you in the form of the coins that you carried around. And now the emperor was claiming he was a god, and there were temples being built in his name. There were extra taxes being levied on the people. And everyone, regardless of religion, regardless of belief, was being forced to acknowledge that the emperor was God, right? And so, in the people's eyes of this time, that power was a significant, real, physical power. And so here they are. They can see the emperor's power. They can see the power of the Roman Empire. It stretches far and wide. It covered the known earth. And now the emperors were declaring themselves gods. And here you have Jesus, whose story is that he was a simple man, a carpenter, who lived his life and then died on a cross and then was resurrected, right? But then he raised up to heaven and he's God. And so we can't see Jesus anymore. We don't have the physical there anymore. And more than that, the original apostles who followed them, besides John at this point, most of them were dead. There were probably very few people left, if any, that had actually been a contemporary of Jesus. Miracles and things of that nature, things that the apostles did where they laid hands on people and healed people, where they, survived snake bites and all this other stuff. Those were going away. Nobody did that stuff anymore, right? You have this one leader, John, who is left, who's been guiding and protecting and teaching these churches in Asia Minor. All of a sudden, he's exiled to the island of Patmos, right? Where's the power of Christianity? Can you see how they would begin to ask that question?
I say John is different than Daniel, and Daniel was a dream, and John, he says he saw it.
Yeah, exactly.
He even felt, verse 17, he fell out. He said Jesus put his right hand.
Mm-hmm.
He felt it.
Exactly.
It was there. And this is a testimony, the last testimony we have of Jesus and the resurrected form from John. He said, I saw him again.
Yeah.
Jesus said, don't be afraid. I'm alive. I'm the one who's alive forever and ever. John saw him some years before he's resurrected. But now John sees him again, and Jesus confirms, I'm alive forever and ever. So this is to me, it's even more powerful testimony.
Absolutely. And that's why this is so significant. is because you had people that were questioning the power of Christianity, questioning the power of Christ, because they can see the power of the Roman Empire. They can feel that power. And they look around and they go, so where's the power of my God? And here John has this testimony. He has this vision. And it's not just a vision, right? It's a real thing. It's a physical thing. And that's kind of there's two differences between Daniel's vision of the Son of Man and John's vision. And this is the first difference, is that it's real. He feels the touch of Jesus, right? And then the second difference is that unlike Daniel, who sees this vision, is scared of it, and then doesn't know what to do with it. Later on at the very end of Daniel, God is going to tell Daniel, he's going to say, listen, all of this stuff, I know it's confusing, but I'm not going to explain it right now. Just write it down, put it on paper, and it'll be explained eventually, right? The difference is between that vision and this vision, John sees the Son of Man, and then the Son of Man talks and explains what he's seeing. He touches him, he makes it real, and then to further kind of show the difference, he talks to him. He says, fear not, don't be afraid, because I am the first and the last and the living one. I died, and yet here I am, right? Alive forever. And I have the keys of death and Hades. And then he tells him a similar thing. He says, write therefore the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are there to take place after this. But then he does it. He begins to explain just a little bit about what he is and what he's about and what this whole vision is about. He says, as for the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. So unlike Daniel, where Daniel has this vision and we're left with questions. What does this mean? What is it? What are these things? In Revelation, something we'll see is that pretty often throughout the book of Revelation, John has a vision. He reacts similarly to how visions happened in the Old Testament with Daniel and Isaiah and Ezekiel. But the difference is, a lot of the time in Revelation, someone explains what is happening and explains what he's seeing. And I think part of the reason for that is because John's vision is post-Christ, right? John's vision happens after the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. And more than that, John is writing to a people who need to see the power of the cross, who need to see the power of Christ. And so after this, after the letters to the churches, we're going to be taken on a pretty fantastic journey into the unseen, right? We're going to be taken into this wonderful place, this throne room of heaven, and we're going to see a lot of things. John, who's having this vision, is going to see a great many things that we just wouldn't otherwise get to see. And I really think this whole first chapter does an excellent job of nailing down the purpose of Revelation. Revelation at its core is about showing the churches, showing the people that are struggling, that just because they can't see Jesus, just because they can't see the Father, just because they can't see the war that's going on, that there are powers and principalities beyond our vision and that they are far more powerful than a Roman emperor and his face on a coin, right? And I think that's really the heart of the message of Revelation, is that power resides solely with God, which is a fantastic message. Any comments or anything about that?
I did find the vision that I was
Yeah.
thinking of Ezekiel chapter 1. It goes on about the winged creatures and such.
Mm-hmm.
There at the end of chapter 1, and upward from and above the expanse of their heads there was the likeness of the throne, in appearance like sapphire, and seated above the likeness of the throne,
Mm-hmm.
but likeness with human appearance. And upward from what had the appearance of his waist I saw it, as it were gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire, enclosed all around. And downward from what had the appearance of his waist I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and there was brightness around it, like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain. About a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, and in the next chapter over, he does talk to Ezekiel, but it's like Jimmy is saying that he doesn't actually touch him. Well, he hands him the scroll, but he doesn't actually touch him like
Right.
like in Revelation.
Yep.
I like that. Ezekiel 128, Ezekiel even said, as soon as I saw that, I fell to the ground.
Yep.
That's Ezekiel, Daniel, John.
Yeah. It really emphasizes all of those things. It really emphasizes just how much reverence and respect those men had, as well as just the awesome. And I don't mean, sometimes nowadays, awesome can mean like cool. And don't get me wrong, God is cool. But when I say awesome, I just mean, incredible, unimaginable. Those are some other words I'd use there. Awesome power of God. In that, when I meet impressive people, right? Well, when I think of my, meetings of significance with impressive people, even the most impressive people I've ever, the most I've been, is I felt a little nervous, right? I can feel butterflies flying in my stomach or something like that. And I can feel a little sweat. But, it's hard to imagine meeting someone that would make me fall to the ground. And yet, apparently, as we see time and time again, God and Christ, they are that person, which is just incredible. All right. Anything else about this before we kind of wrap it up? All right. Justin, or maybe Candy. This seems like a Candy thing to say on YouTube. Says, when you met me, right? No. When I met both of you, in fact, I thought to myself, man, these are going to be some annoying people I'm going to have to put up with for the rest of my life. No, I'm kidding. When I met both of you, you guys were great. But yeah. All right. Well, next week we will be talking finally about the letters to the churches. There are 7 of them. I'm going to be honest. We're not going to go through and read each one because the homework assignment I have for this week is I want you to read them, please. And I think you will find that there is a pattern to every single one. And so the homework for this week is to identify the pattern, that John is using to write to the 7 churches. And we'll talk a little bit about that and spend some time on each of them, hopefully next week, and talk about them. All right. Is there any other things before we jump to some prayer requests and some announcements? All righty then. All right. Announcements Wednesday, June 2nd. The announcements are surprisingly shorter this week, which is, I think, a good thing. At least the prayer list is. Items due this week: personal hygiene items, toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, etc. We gave away 30 boxes very, very fast this morning. I think it only took about 45 minutes, and we had given them all away. So we are continuing to do really, really excellent work with the food bank there. We have some prayer requests, and hopefully some of these names should be coming pretty familiar because a lot of the people that come and ask for prayers are ones that we see over and over again. Alice Lovell was asking for prayers for her son and his family who have corona. Junior Holly is asking for prayers for her mom who's been sick. I think she may need to go to the hospital. Regina Holly is asking for prayers for her granddaughter who had brain surgery and is 13 years old, had to go for seizures, and her son had gallbladder surgery. Emily Johnson is asking for prayers for her plantar fasciitis in her foot. Pat Hall is asking that we give a prayer of thanks for the ease of her pain. And Janie Brown is asking for prayers for going back for a checkup this afternoon for a recent colon surgery. Linda Goins is asking for prayers for her father's pain and her husband's Parkinson. Molly is asking for prayers for her family and their 3 kids. Estella Vicente is asking for her prayers for her family and her 2 kids. And then Domatia and Jennifer are both asking for prayers for their family and the health of their families. Carmen is asking for prayers for her mother who is sick and for her kids who are here in America and the one who's in Guatemala. And then Sandra Butler was also asking for prayers because she may have to have a heart valve replaced. And then her son, who has mental health issues, has taken off, kind of disappeared. We want to pray for his safety and return. And then her special needs grandson, which I think is the son of the son who took off, is going to go and get evaluated soon. So we want to pray for him to get the care he needs. So it's just a really, really kind of bad, messed up situation that's happening there. And so we want to give prayers for that. Some of our own prayer requests include Vernon Cox, who had 2 treatments last week. He had blood work today, and we'll have it next week here in Clinton, and then go back to Carti and Conway. We want to continue to remember him. Theresa Smith has 2 discs in her back that are deteriorated. The doctor said the surgery will not help. She will continue taking physical therapy for now to see if it can help some. Cecil Tilley, we want to continue to remember him as he recovers from the infection in his knee. And then Barry Anderson, we want to please keep him in our prayers as he has a procedure tomorrow. Are there any other prayer requests or anything?
My sister's out of the hospital now.
All right.
Her family, and myself want to thank everybody for the prayers.
All right. Frank's sister is out of the hospital. Wants to thank everybody for the prayers. Anything else? Also remember this Sunday, June 6th, we will begin having Bible classes at 9:30 a.m., which is a good thing. All right. Well, would you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for your many blessings, God. We're just so thankful for everything that you do and all your many blessings, God. We just thank you for just, being with us every step of the way, God. We ask that now that you be with us, that we're on our prayer list and those that we've been praying for. It just seems like the sick list always gets longer, God. And we ask that you intervene and that you take care of the people that we mentioned, that your healing hand be in those situations, that you ease pain and that you bring life and joy to their lives, God. I ask that you bring peace and comfort to all of our lives. Help us to lean not on our own understanding. Help us to follow in the example of Jesus in everything that we do, God. We just thank you so much. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. All right. Well, adios.